The New York Yankees announced that they are calling up Ben Rice from AAA, and that is because Anthony Rizzo has suffered a finger fracture on his fourth and fifth fingers. Now, this is off of a hit by pitch. It was a freak accident. It's one of those injuries that you can't really expect, project, or quite honestly really blame anyone for. There's nothing the Yankees could have done. There's nothing Rizzo could have done to avoid what happened there. It's an unfortunate situation, and it's a tough blow for Rizzo because it's the second injury sustained this year where it wasn't due to a lack of conditioning or a situation where he pulled something. It was a freak accident, a scenario that he couldn't really control that caused the injury. Now, for Ben Rice, this is his second chance at the major leagues. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but let's focus a little bit on Rizzo and kind of the roster transactions and what's on the table here. First and foremost, Anthony Rizzo was not placed on the IL. That means that Anthony Rizzo is still eligible to be activated for the postseason and could make the ALDS roster, but Aaron Boone told reporters today that it is a long shot as to whether that'll happen or not. It seems as if we don't really think Rizzo's coming back. Rizzo doesn't look like somebody who's going to be in a position to play for the first game of the ALDS. We're talking about a finger fracture here. That is a pretty serious injury, although Boone talked about it being more of a pain tolerance thing. I do think that there's a lot of pain tolerance you need to have to play through a finger fracture. It also affects your ability to play defense. It affects your ability to swing the bat. There are a lot of things that are in play here, and considering that Rizzo only has an 84 WRC plus on the season, further degrading his offensive skill set and further impeding his ability to make contact and make an impact on the baseball is certainly not ideal. He'd probably project more of like a 70 to 75 WRC plus hitter, and he can get that kind of production from an Oswaldo Cabrera or a Ben Rice, and there's also no telling how he'll be able to play defensively or how he'll hold up out there. Rizzo is someone who was playing better than he was previous to his IL stint. He had a 97 WRC plus since coming back, but there wasn't a lot of power there. Really, a lot of the value the Yankees were getting out of Rizzo was the fact that he was playing really good defense. He was recovering a lot of bad throws with his scoops. He was doing a pretty good job of holding down the position and just playing admirably defensively. But now the Yankees are going to have to find a way to, find a starting first baseman. And first base has been a problem for them all year. It has not been a position where they've gotten production. They were not able to get a first baseman at the trade deadline. Ben Rice didn't pan out when he first came up here. He struggled in August, and the Yankees started playing LeMahieu, which was something I disagreed with, but granted, it's not like Rice was particularly dominating. And then Cabrera kind of tailed off after having a really hot summer and looking like he'd be more involved in the starting lineup. That being said, Ben Rice is coming up, and Ben Rice is starting today, and I'd imagine he'd be their primary option at first base because they probably trust his glove a little more than Cabrera's, and they probably value Cabrera's ability to come off the bench and play defense at a variety of different positions, pinch run, all that kind of stuff, maybe even pinch hit. We've seen them pinch hit Volpe for Cabrera before, so, maybe that's something they do in the playoffs. Personally, I really like Ben Rice. I think he did a lot of things well from a process standpoint. He finished above average in zone contact rate, chase rate, zone swing rate. He was above average at making quality contact as well. He barreled the ball a ton. He consistently got the ball in the air as well. There are things that I think Ben Rice does at a pretty high level for a player who is a first-year big leaguer, and I think that kind of process should usually result in some pretty good results on the field. It's hard for me to imagine that Ben Rice, if his process remained as good as it was when he was first called up, it's hard for me to imagine that Ben Rice would struggle as much as he did offensively, although there were a couple of key weaknesses that I think pitchers were able to expose. Number one, he wasn't very good against lefties, so I think left-handed pitchers just in general gave him fits, but secondly, and kind of more the bigger focus of this conversation, is velocity. He had a below average WOBA against four-seamers thrown at 95 plus miles an hour, and that's something that's a concern because not being able to handle velocity is a problem, especially in the postseason where velocity is king, where teams are throwing their best arms. Their best arms typically are the ones that throw the hardest. Guys who are throwing hard tend to throw even harder. There seems to be an uptick in velocity as the situations become more critical. Your season's on the line basically with every pitch, so it makes sense that guys are geared up a little more amped, I guess is the right way to put it. But when it comes to Ben Rice, there are some things that he could do mechanically that could help him. Whether it's starting his load a little earlier, or even something as simple as just being a little more queued up for it, or mentally having a little more preparation for velocity. Sometimes it's a cue, sometimes it's a matter of loading a little earlier. There are a lot of different reasons why a player could struggle with velocity. But I'm not completely concerned with it because Wells had that issue when he first came up, and the Yankees were able to correct it a good bit. With that being said, first base is a question mark for the New York Yankees. As they enter the American League Division Series, it will clearly be the position that they're the weakest at. Not the bullpen, not the rotation, no longer third base, no longer second base. It's first base. That's the position that's going to have the spotlight on it the most. And for Ben Rice, this is a pretty big opportunity for him. He has a chance to really carve out a spot on the 2025 team. If he has a strong postseason, I expect the Yankees to view him as the starting first baseman entering 2025. And of course, if this team goes on a deep playoff run and Ben Rice is able to hold on to his job, even if a guy like Rizzo were to be ready, that would indicate a lot about what he was doing in the postseason. What I like about Rice is that he can run into one, and that means he can put a ball into the seats. He can hit a home run. He can really impact the game. He can change a game completely with just one swing, and that's something I think is highly valuable, especially in the postseason when it's really about one swing or one pitch. You're always one swing away. You're always one pitch away from either winning or losing a game, and in that case, winning or losing a series. And we know for the New York Yankees that the goal is at least getting to a World Series. If they don't win the pennant this year, it's going to be a very long and hard offseason. Even if they were to re-sign Soto, there would be a lot of questions about why that current group couldn't get it done. Obviously, the Yankees have had a lot of injuries in the past happen right before October, but you would argue the Yankees haven't had that bad of a hand in terms of injuries. I would argue the Nestor Cortez injury is pretty significant because he was your team leader in innings pitched before he was shut down. He was the team leader in WAR on the pitching side of the ball. And he was pitching a lot better as of late. I viewed him as their most consistent starter, really, over the last 2 months of the year. He was someone who I think could have played a big role in the bullpen or potentially in the rotation if they were to get to the ALCS. The Yankees currently hold the number 1 seed, and they're locked into it. The Orioles are locked into the 4 seed, the Guardians are locked into the 2 seed, and the Astros are locked into the 3 seed. The only question is whether the Tigers or the Royals will hold the 5th and 6th seeds, which is, pretty significant just because it changes who the Yankees' 2 potential matchups could be. If it's Baltimore and Detroit, which is what it currently is right now, then those are the Yankees' 2 possible opponents for the ALDS. If it's Kansas City and Baltimore, again, it's just changing the alternative opponent or the lower seed that the Orioles are playing. The Orioles will hold a home field advantage for the wild card, and the Yankees will hold a home field advantage throughout the AL playoffs, regardless of outcome, so that's not really a factor there. It's just a matter of who you'd rather play for the New York Yankees. The Tigers are red hot. They're on paper the worst team entering the postseason, but they are the team that's the hottest. The Royals are the coldest team entering the postseason, I'd argue. They've really stumbled. They lost 7 straight over a stretch. They haven't even played well in this Atlanta series. I'd consider them the team that's stumbled the most, but that doesn't really matter come October. The Rangers completely fell on their face in the last game of the season. They blew the division. They had a great opportunity in September to win the division, and they found a way to dominate in October. They won the World Series, so the Royals, you can't count them out. Baltimore, of course, took 2 of 3 from the Yankees, took the season series from the Yankees, so that's initially a concern if you're playing them, but you do feel confident that the tides have turned compared to the earlier stages of the year where the Yankees really weren't the ball club they are right now. And then you look at, the other side of the bracket, Cleveland, Houston, and then one of Detroit or Kansas City. I'd argue the biggest threat to the Yankees in the AL is either Baltimore or Houston, but again, things could change on a dime. So we'll see what happens with the Yankees at first base. I again presume that Ben Rice is going to get the lion's share of starts in October. Perhaps they try Cabrera at first against a left-handed pitcher, but we'll see. As for Anthony Rizzo, this could be the last time yesterday could have been the last time we see him in pinstripes. It could be the last time we see him play for the New York Yankees, depending on how Ben Rice plays, how far the Yankees go in October, and how much Rizzo heals. So if that was it, I think it was a pretty strong tenure with the Yankees. Unfortunately, he had the concussion, the arm fracture, the finger fracture. It was a lot of things he can't really control. I think shortened his stint with the Yankees. I fully believe that he could have had a productive 2023 season and maybe a productive 2024 season had he not been concussed. So there's that. We'll see what happens with first base again, and we'll see what happens in the LDS. But we've got you guys covered with news here at Fireside Yankees. You guys can check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. You guys can also check out EmpireSportsMedia.com for written content. We've got you guys covered on the Yankees, on various West Coast teams, whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's the Chargers or the Lakers. We also have you covered on all your favorite New York sports teams, the Jets, the Giants, the Rangers, the Mets, whatever team you're really into. So make sure you guys check us out there. And of course, you guys can check me out at Ryan Garcia ESM. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, everybody.
Perfect.